My name is Carrie Willigan, and I'm delighted to have everybody join us today for this panel at ProfessionalQuest Technology and Business. I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Dean Maury Piperl. He's going to say a few words for us at the beginning. If you have any questions throughout the course of the event, please do put them through the chat and we will make sure we get them. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Dean, for joining us today.
Carrie, it's my absolute pleasure. And I would like to thank you and the whole team for organizing this great event and wish everybody a good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Indeed, this is the George Mason School of Business Office of Career Services ProfessionalQuest event. And this is a big one. This is technology and business. Now, we've had a whole series of ProfessionalQuest events and they've all been very good. And this is one that is front and center for so many of us right now. So I'm really delighted to welcome everybody. We have a wonderful panel here, which I'll let my colleagues introduce, but I do want to emphasize that we this semester have a sponsor for our entire ProfessionalQuest series, and that is the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. And I want to thank them for their partnership, for the sponsorship, and their support. You'll hear from them in a moment, but I just wanted to give a shout out and say thank you so much. And I'm going to also mention that our moderator today for the panel is my colleague, Professor Neeru Menon, who is not only the chair of our Information Systems and Operations Management group, but also the Associate Dean for Ventures in Arlington, which, as you know, if you've been following developments around George Mason, are highly connected with technology. So just a quick reminder, if you have questions for the panelists, just go ahead and put them in the chat. And should we run out of time, which sometimes happens, especially with over 100 people, you should feel free to email the Career Services Office, and we're happy to help as well as we have all been, they have all been doing now, particularly intensively this year, counseling and supporting all the students in their career search activities. So I am delighted to introduce Alex Sanchez. Alex is with the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, our sponsors, and I just want to say thanks, and Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Dean Piperl. We are excited to be a sponsor for JMU's ProfessionalQuest series. GMU has been a strategic partner to Fairfax County Economic Development Authority for many years. With close to 40,000 students being enrolled, it's important to create opportunities for recent graduates to fill the need of talent that companies are actively seeking. Partnering with universities like GMU is critical to our mission and the business community. For a brief background, Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, we operate under the direction of a commission, which is comprised of business people appointed by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. We are larger than normal economic development organization with over 40 employees with 5 international offices and an outreach office in California. Our purpose is to attract, promote, and retain businesses within the county while promoting the region as an innovation leader. I am part of the business investment team. Our team worked last year with almost 150 businesses that announced they would add 11,000 jobs to the county economy. The industries I support are software, data analytics, and cloud. We support companies through services like talent acquisition, communications, connecting to grants and incentives, as well as being the liaison to the county government. We are a company's marketing and talent acquisition extension. It's great to be a part of this segment of technology and business. There are about 8,900 technology companies and 152,000 tech employees just in Fairfax County. These numbers represent opportunity, and I look forward to highlighting resources GMU students can leverage throughout our event today to capture your opportunity. With that being said, I'll pass it back to Professor Menon.
Thank you, Alex. Now that Alex has given a brief introduction about the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority and his role in there, I would request each of the panelists to please speak for about a minute about your company as well as the role that you play in it. I have all names spread all over the screen, but I have a list here, so I'm just going to call out from the list if that's okay. So we'll start first with the with UiPath, Bobby Patrick.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. I had the pleasure of being in the business school back in the early 90s. I graduated in 93 with an MIS decision science degree. The best years definitely for me. With Mason, I got a great job at Accenture. was turned into a big start to my career. I've been moved into becoming a CMO just 4 years later for a hosting company. And since then, I've been in Fortune 20 companies and in numbers of startups, some that have failed and some that are great. I'm fortunate right now to be perhaps in the greatest startup of my career, UiPath. We're an automation software company. I joined the company when it was very small. It was Romania based. Just moved to the US. We had about 20 million in revenues. This is about 3.5 years ago. Today, we have about 600 million in revenues. We're probably the fastest growing enterprise software company in history, and have raised about $2 billion. And it's really exciting because the software is delighting people because it takes away the mundane and repetitive tasks that we all have to do in the workforce and everywhere. And these robots then kind of work as on our side doing things for us. And it's a good path to bringing AI into companies. And it's been tremendous. We've hired in the DC area about 75 people. I'm based in New York, but live in Alexandria, Virginia. And I'm excited to spend time with you here today. Mason's in my heart. I spend a lot of time on the campus. I certainly go to a lot of basketball games. And I'm very proud of the name George Mason. And I often talk about the university to my colleagues and others all around the world. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Chrystel Akakpo, would you like to go next from Eagle Bank?
Yes, thanks, Rob. And hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, like Bobby. I actually went to school in Texas. I did my undergrad at UT Austin with a degree in management of information systems, like Bobby as well. And then, I started my career with KPMG within their IT risk advisory practice in the Dallas office. So I worked there for a couple of years, working on mostly technology risk type projects. And then after that, I joined Ernst & Young, literally right across the street, also in the Dallas area. And it's really there that I developed my career. I got several roles within the 10 years that I was there. And then, I decided at some point that I wanted to expand my business acumen. I was working extensively in the technology space, and, just felt like I needed to enhance some of my other business skills like finance, marketing, and be a well-rounded professional, if you will. So I pursued an MBA at UCLA, did it full time, quit my job, and moved to the West Coast. And best 2 years of my life, I can honestly say, so far. And after graduation, I went back to consulting for a little bit, and then a couple of years ago, I joined Eagle Bank in their internal audit practice. Still working on technology risk type projects, working closely with our IT department, information security and cybersecurity, to make sure that as the bank is growing relatively quickly, we're doing so in a secured manner. And so I've really enjoyed my time with Eagle Bank. It's one of the smallest companies I've worked for. And maybe I can expand on this later, but there's so many more opportunities with smaller companies than I expected going in. So it's been a great journey, and I'm really excited to be here talking to you guys this afternoon and spending some time together. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chrystel. Next, we have Brian Coughlin from Salesforce.
Thanks, Nir. Yes, I'm Brian Coughlin from Salesforce. I am a distinguished solution engineer, been at Salesforce a little over 8 years now. What that title means is I actually work with Salesforce customers to understand their requirements and help them determine whether Salesforce can be a fit for some of their challenges and their mission. I actually cover federal agencies in the US government. So it's interesting working with them to develop a more customer-oriented experience for their constituents rather than just kind of the worst. Maybe the example everyone can relate to is, you go to the DMV and you get a number and you just sit down and, compare that to an Apple store, right? Why can't the government be a little more customer and consumer friendly than like that we take for granted with other great companies that Salesforce also works with in the commercial space. So Anyway, so yeah, I've been at Salesforce 8 years. I actually got my master's in computer science. I completed that while I was at Salesforce about 6 years ago out of the Volkenau School of Engineering. Ironically, I was doing the one course every semester kind of thing and taking most of my courses online out of necessity with a large family and working full time. So it was a decision of necessity, but it actually became and now it's something to talk about in the context of COVID, because I was essentially doing as much distance learning as possible out of necessity, and now everyone's doing it out of necessity. So I think that's been interesting. Anyway, yeah, Salesforce, if you haven't heard of that, we are an enterprise type software company. So we don't typically sell software the way Apple does or Google or, things that regular consumers use. But a lot of their customers use Salesforce to make their interactions with their customers better. So, whether it's Home Depot or Hulu, those are big names you would hear of in the commercial world, or in the public sector. We have large accounts across all the federal agencies that they use it for a variety of things that vary by agency. And Salesforce is a platform. So as a technologist, I get to really be deep with different parts of Salesforce technology and understand how to apply those for customers to make their job better and their constituents' experience better. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have Marilyn Asongwe from PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Hey there, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey everyone, yeah, it's Marilyn. I actually go by Lena, it's my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm representing PwC. So I'm actually probably been working a little bit less longer than some of the folks in the panelists, but happy to share some of my experience so far. For background, I graduated from George Mason 2017. So, and I actually, I came out of the program really with an accounting major, but I did actually graduate with the minor in business analytics at the time. That was one of the newer minors. And so I've been with PwC essentially for about 3 years. And I joined PwC actually in like a digital accelerator role. So it was kind of, I like to say a startup role at PwC, which was really a digital technology focused role for accounting professionals. So basically coming into, and I would love to share more about this when the panel questions come in, but just to kind of provide the context. So I came in that digital accelerator role, and really that has kind of been a different transition as an accounting major coming into an accounting firm and really working on product development, automations, as well as really touching and getting some experience with different technologies that are out there. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Lena. And finally, we have Courtney Gleason from KPMG.
Hi, thank you. Yep, my name is Courtney Gleason, and I am here representing KPMG. I went to James Madison University, so right around the corner, and I graduated with a computer information systems degree. Right out of JMU, I started my career with KPMG, and I'm still here today. I can tell you a little bit more about KPMG. KPMG is a big Four public accounting and professional services firm. We have more than 200,000 professionals all around the world. We're located in more than, I believe it's 147 countries, and have more than 100 offices in the United States. So we're really everywhere. And then lastly, we have 3 practices: audit, tax, and advisory. I specifically work in the DC and Tyson's office in advisory within the tech assurance practice. And then I also do some work within our cyber practice. And I still use a lot of the skills that I had from my degree at JMU, as I'm sure that you will, coming out of George Mason. Specifically, I deal with a lot of security architecture and security compliance. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Courtney. So next we'll begin with the panel questions. And of course, we have the list of names and we can go in the same order, but feel free to follow any order as I ask some of these questions. So I'm going to start with the most obvious question that's probably on the minds of some of our students for this summer, as well as students that are graduating. is that how has the pandemic affected your internship program and your full-time hiring programs in your companies immediately?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah,
jump in. Yeah, I mean, last year was a year ago, right? When this started, or a little over a year ago, it was certainly an uncertain time. But for a lot of technology companies, I'm sure Salesforce and others, and certainly for the auditing companies and for UiPath, actually business accelerated during the pandemic as a result of people needing to transform digitally and such, and so remote work and things. And so it certainly turned out to be, in a lot of cases, and you can see it in the stock market with technology stocks as well, actually kind of the opposite happened, right? And so while we all retrenched and kind of put pauses on things, it didn't take, but at UiPath, like 2 months, I think, to realize that we could go raise even more money at a higher valuation and begin hiring again. So, we're hiring probably about 400 employees right now worldwide, predominantly in sales and in product engineering and product management. Those are the main areas we're hiring. Some in the DC area. We have a large federal team. We have 80 plus federal clients already, even though we just started here a few years ago. So I would say it should be a good time. And I think we'll talk about later as well some tips perhaps on how you can reach out and get an edge in that recruiting process as well.
Thank you, Bobby.
Right.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is Brian.
this is-
Oh, sorry. I can just echo that as well. So go ahead, Chrystel.
Sorry, Brian. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, same thing with Eagle Bank. Like Bobby mentioned, technology has, kind of really had a growth spur during this pandemic. Fortunately, with all the infrastructure to support the remote work environment, and specifically for our internal audit function, we are moving full speed ahead with our project. We actually just hired an IT audit senior to come, augment our team and support the team through the project that we have planned for the rest of the year. So, there hasn't been much slowing down. Even when I think about our cybersecurity and IT department, there's a lot of really nice, or not nice, but like major initiatives that are coming up on the horizon that we're going to need expertise and specialized skills for. And so I'm anticipating that those departments will also be adding additional resources in the near future.
Thank you, Chrystel. Anyone else
Yeah,
on the panel? Yeah.
I'll just give a little Salesforce insight on that too. Yeah, we've also seen our growth accelerate after kind of initial reset of expectations once things started locking down about a year ago. But and with regard to things like internship and hiring, obviously everything is virtual at this point in terms of interview processes and that kind of thing. And in some ways it was always an option before, but now it's just the primary option. So in some ways it wasn't like we changed a lot of the concepts of what we're trying to do. It just had to go all virtual. Obviously it's more challenging for anyone who comes on new as an intern or as a fresh hire at any level than into a big company where you're not going into an office and you have that sense of culture to kind of absorb organically as a person. So at Salesforce, it was actually coincidentally good timing. We've acquired Slack. I don't know if it's officially cleared yet, but it's very much in process. But Slack, among other tools that we use all the Google tools as well, and obviously Zoom and other tools like that to collaborate and coordinate internally as much as externally with customers. And so that's really important. And tools like Slack actually help us reinforce our company culture in a way that can be appropriate for everyone's roles too. So, and do it in an online and virtual way. So it's not to say things are a substitute for being face-to-face or being in a room with your colleagues sometimes, especially when you're new, but it certainly helps to have some better tools to support that in an online only environment.
This is Courtney from KPMG. I can go next. I think it's important to share that actually COVID didn't impact KPMG's internships or full-time offers at all. So we honored all of our internship offers and full-time offers. And last summer we did a virtual program instead of canceling the internship. So I think that's one really special thing about KPMG. And then as Brian was hitting on before, the culture is a little bit different because we are remote right now. However, I think our management does a great job at still getting the teams together. I've experienced like mixology classes with my teams, cooking classes, a lot of game nights. And so everyone is still staying really personal and really close throughout our client work. So wanted to share. Thanks.
Yeah. Gonna kind of add to that as well. This is Lena speaking from PwC. Yeah, PwC was also involved, in terms of COVID. We were really able to kind of transition, considering the fact that we had invested in a lot of technology in the onset before really the pandemic. So we had a lot of like technologies that were already kind of leveraged in order to support that remote environment. And even in the context of just hiring, all the PwC job offers were honored, internships as well as full-time. And in addition to that, they were continuing doing some recruiting events. I know that I was personally involved with some of the recruiting events that occurred, which were all remote. I actually thought it was a lot better because you could definitely get more visibility with a lot more individuals, especially since some individuals couldn't attend all the in-person events in the past. But it seemed as though it was a lot more flexible to be able to reach out to more of the offerees as well as the potential new hires. But speaking in terms of the way in which the pandemic changed a lot of like the team culture and so forth. I definitely think there was changes in terms of like, you definitely miss going in office and seeing faces on a regular basis. But in my team personally, we were able to kind of, facilitate having certain events. Like I remember this year, we actually had a virtual baby shower for some of our team members, which is also common across certain teams as well. And with that being said, I know that for some of the new hires, we had about 4 new hires in my team, and HR as well as a lot of the team dynamics were able to kind of facilitate squad set like weekly meetings. So it kind of facilitated that informal, catching up with the new hires, getting them transition into the teams and just making sure they have, a face-to-face touch point throughout the week with teams, especially knowing that, in this virtual environment, it's kind of hard to get that in-person touch point.
Thank you, Elena. I'd like to pick up on something that Bobby started to speak about. Then he said we put it off for later, which is how can students reach out to companies and how can they leverage this work from home environment and their technology skills to either obtain an internship or a full-time position. And maybe I'll also throw in this, that is the way that they approach these companies different for smaller entrepreneurial companies versus large consulting companies or even banks, for example?
I can start as a plug for something that Salesforce offers anybody, whether it's at a student, a university, or anyone who's new to our technology. We have a service or a site we call trailhead.salesforce.com. And so that allows anybody to actually do self-paced, self-guided learning totally for free on Salesforce, so that you can actually accumulate badges and credentials that go towards your skills and qualifications as a Salesforce person in whatever direction you want to go. You could focus on analytics, you could focus on marketing, you could focus on sales, you could focus on various sort of lanes that align to Salesforce products, yes, but they can also align to your areas of interest or career path. So I actually use it myself in my job. I take Trailhead trails to keep myself current with Salesforce technology in my role. I'm up to, I don't know, 100 and some, or maybe low 200s of badges now after a few years of accumulating them. and they're great to keep yourself current, and also just to get, or if you're new, to get your feet wet with Salesforce. And having to be able to reference those badges is a great way to say you have a leg up potentially on others if you're competing for a position or an internship. And it also gives you that awareness of what Salesforce is about with some hands-on experience, rather than just, seeing YouTube videos or reading about it. So so that really helps ways. In terms of actually directly reaching out, Salesforce also has a Trailblazer community, which is once you actually get a credential on Trailhead to get this process started that I was talking about, you can actually use that credential to log into the Trailblazer community, and you could exchange information or questions with peers or with other people who represent different parts of Salesforce as well. So so it's both a learning opportunity and a way to engage as well, because everyone actually gets a Trailhead profile that you can put on your LinkedIn page or whatever, and I have one as well. So so anyway, so just things to keep in mind. It's a great way to help to give some foundation towards reaching out and engaging with Salesforce, or understanding more about what we're about, because it is tough to do those kind of first connections with companies, particularly big ones like Salesforce, if it's just sort of out of the blue without some context. So I'll start there.
Yeah, I'm happy to give three quick piece of advice. The first one is the pandemic accelerated one really great thing, and that is distributed workforces, and something that I believed in for decades, but I still had to make the commute, for example, from DC to Palo Alto to go to HP, because that company didn't quite believe in it. Now the world's changed, which is great for you all. It means you can look outside of areas you want to live in and look for opportunities. I'd recommend you go look at the Forbes 50 fastest growing tech companies in the country. Go to their sites, get to see what's open. And my second recommendation then be, when you find the ones you want, find the open roles that are there, but then use LinkedIn to get to executives or others within that company. I can tell you it works. I got one this morning. Somebody sent a real nice LinkedIn. I get tons of LinkedIn direct messages, but I do look at them. And if it's personal, I usually try to respond. And this one had a great job link from our site. Said, really appreciate the introduction. Here's my background quickly, my interests. Didn't have much of a background yet. And I gave her a direct email and asked her to CC me on that email. And I can tell you, that works. And then third, and I'll agree with Brian, you could do this with any company, not just Salesforce, but most of the new modern tech companies offer free training online where you can begin to learn their soft technology. We have a UiPath Academy. Millions have gone through it. You earn badges. You can learn these technologies, in a week or weekend, and it gives you a leg up, because you can say, I've earned these badges, I've earned these certifications, I'm committed to your technology. I can understand it, I can hit the ground running, and it works. So, one is distributed workforce, right? Two is, use LinkedIn and networks like that to get in a personal way and get that extra help, and then and I tell you, it's it couldn't be a better time for you all, but it does require you to kind of stand out. People are applying to these things, jobs left and right. So you got to find that opening and then differentiate. A little hard work, earn some badges or certifications, become an RPA certified developer, for example, at UiPath. It's a leg up.
Yeah, and to add on to Bobby and Brian, another emphasis on LinkedIn. If your profile is not updated, maybe spend some time to go through it and make sure the courses that are relevant to the jobs that you're looking for are listed there, and the types of opportunities that you're hoping for is clearly articulated there as well. So that would be the first the first thing to do. And it sounds like from just a campus recruiting perspective, events are still happening, just in a different format. So, keep leveraging those virtual channels, I guess, to connect with professionals and recruiters. And you could, complement that again with LinkedIn. I know I'm always happy to get those, messages from even people I don't know who are interested in my profession or my career path, just to, catch up, call it a coffee chat. That's what we used to call it back in the days. But just 30 minutes of somebody's time to hear about, their career trajectory, what they're doing right now, as it relates to what you're interested in. I think people are always excited to, get a little break from work and talk about themselves. So don't hesitate to do that. Of course, if there is, if you have a contact who has a connection with the person you're ultimately trying to reach out to, feel free to leverage those so that they can make the introductions for you if you're not necessarily comfortable, cold calling people on LinkedIn. So, just leverage your network, leverage your resources you have on campus, and don't be afraid to reach out.
And,
yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Just one thing I wanted to add through the EDA side. Within the year, we've cultivated a talent initiative program for employers and job seekers to meet on a virtual platform for a hiring opportunity. So we partner with companies to add their operations to a cluster map, and we'll actually funnel job seekers to their career page. Another thing we do is we host virtual career fairs. So there's one actually upcoming that I think JMU students can leverage. It's May 20th, and we have our career fair focusing on entry-level professionals. So it's companies within the county with entry-level positions that they can meet talent. And that website, I could drop it in the chat. It's called Work in Northern Virginia. And I could drop it in the chat for more info.
Thank you, Alex. And before I close off this line of question, let me just quickly ask Chrystel, Lena, and Courtney, are there any credentials or badges in the auditing field that students in ISOM could take?
As far as credentials, sorry, Lena. But just really quickly, we don't really use the concept of badges necessarily in financial services. I think what would stand out mostly is certification. But for entry level positions, it's definitely not expected to have those certifications at that point. So not necessarily relevant for financial services, I guess.
Yeah, I can jump in here. I would just echo what she just said as well. We don't really have badges, but certifications is a big one, and obviously not expecting anyone as you're entering the career to have a certification, but one of the biggest ones that most people get before, during their first or second year working as an auditor, it's called the CISA certification. That stands for Certified Information System Auditor. And that's a big one that people usually get before they make it to the manager level. So if you are looking into certain certifications, I would definitely start there.
Okay. And this is Lena. I think in terms of the badges, PwC does have digital badges, which has been encouraged. So when I came into the firm as a digital accelerator, one of the initiatives that they were also pushing in terms of really upskilling and getting more technology-enabled professionals at PwC is really pushing that digital badges. So some of the digital badges that I was able to earn was visualization tools. So in terms of that, we were able to kind of work with an outside vendor in order to kind of provide some, courses online, short brief courses online where you can get certifications and get those badge and get into that badge program. So it was really, feasible considering the fact that I was able to get time in order to kind of take those mini courses and be able to get those badges. And I mean, they last for several years, and then you're also able to kind of retest and make sure that those are active badges. So I have several on my LinkedIn. I know that we have separate ones also for automations, as well as the normal data wrangling, and then we also have some for AI technology as well. But that's separate from the certifications that the firm does request as you progress into as you progress into higher levels of the firm. So since we are still a CPA firm, there's that CPA certification that oftentimes those who are working in that audit and tax line of service are usually encouraged to get that certification. And separately, for those who are more in that technology route, line of service, as well as advisory line of services, there are other certifications which are encouraged for folks to get as they progress further into their career. But the badge program is definitely really kind of a fun gamification effort that I know that Peter pushed, which I personally have enjoyed.
Thank you, Lena. Related to this, a question from a student, there are many products out there. I mean, for example, UiPath has its competitors, Salesforce has its competitors, and there are many credentialing opportunities out there. So how does a student determine what's important for them to learn to succeed?
Sure, I'll start a little with that. So one thing, and maybe Bobby will look at this too. One thing that really helps, at least in the customers I deal with, is if they have a deep understanding of a core aspect of their business or something that is unique to what that customer brings, then that's part of the reasons why we offer this online self-paced training. Is it's becoming easier to connect the technology of a Salesforce UiPath with these different use cases if the customer has a good understanding of what they're trying to do and how technology might solve that in the general sense. So that's a bit of it sounds a bit vague. I know it's not like, oh, go out and get this to a student, but it often helps to have that duality of perspective of having some expertise in something or depth in something that is business oriented or unique to how something operates, and then being able to understand how technology could be applied to improve that. And those tend to be the best kinds of customers I deal with, is where they have that duality, because whether it's myself or peers that I have at Salesforce, we can bring all kinds of tools and technology expertise to the table to move them forward, but we have to have a clear understanding of their use case and why it has a benefit to their business and return on investment and things like that. So so that's kind of a way to take away this in terms of what I would do if I was a student, is try and have a perspective or again, an area of interest that you are passionate about. And that'll carry you through, because technologies will change all the time. I mean, there's things I do and know at Salesforce today that didn't even exist or I didn't need to know, 7 years ago or 8 years ago when I started. And that's even within Salesforce, let alone skills I used at prior companies. So, those things, the technology changes all the time. And so from that perspective, get used to continual learning. But what really carries forward, regardless of the technology of the day, is understanding some of those, those key, whether it's business or, whether it's things like, security and audit or, analytics or those types of areas, try and develop a perspective in terms of your interest in those types of areas, and something that will carry through no matter how the technology changes, or even, the vendors that might be considered good in that technology from, year to year, decade to decade. So that's my recommendation on that. It's, so if you have that interest, then you can try and apply that to, you can go to the Trailhead part of Salesforce, the UiPath Academy, or other places and say, oh, they have modules in this area of interest. I just checked as we were talking about cybersecurity. There are modules on Trailhead for that, right? So if that's your area of interest, with ISOM, right, then you can understand how different vendors approach that, and again, get modules for that area, maybe across some of the leading vendors. So I hope that perspective provides some guidance, because otherwise, yeah, you're right. It's just, there's a gazillion credentials out there, and that you could just spend days, going through everything.
Yeah, it's like programming languages, right? There are hundreds of programming languages, a lot of niche ones, but you have to decide which one would you want to learn, right? But the idea of learning how programming works applies, gets you a long way there, right? The question is, which one do you pick first? I would recommend, you always try to pick one of the ones that's the fastest growing at the top of the list, right? Tableau, for example, it's a Salesforce company. Tableau visualization, you can go to Power BI, right? You can, if you're, you learn UiPath and you go somewhere and they want to use automation anywhere. The idea and construct of the two platforms are the same thing. You have to learn how to do automate a workflow of how work gets done, right? And so, I'd pick the one with the biggest opportunity, right? So, UiPath has almost 50% market share in automation, so that's what I would pick. But we would hire people who know another one, because we know they understand and have the aptitude to understand what automating a workflow can mean. I think that applies to visualizations, it applies to data science, and Alteryx and those things as well. But you can easily figure out who has the share in the growth right now. I think it's my advice.
That's a good point, Bobby. Okay, so ISOM students range in their interest in being very technical to being least technical. And so many of you have started either in MIS or in accounting, and now are either in marketing or in auditing and different fields. So how can a student figure out early on as to whether they want to be in sales and marketing of technology products, or they want to be in business and information requirements stage, or they want to be in IT project management? Is there any combination of skills and personality that matters?
This is Lena. I can kind of speak to that, considering the fact that when I initially came to PwC, I really wasn't sure per se, essentially whether I wanted a traditional accounting experience. So I joined into the tax line of service, but when I was starting, that's when they started that digital accelerator opportunity. So I think, just by being curious and staying curious and staying interested, I was able to join this program, learn a lot more about different technologies, and learn how to actually, leverage these technologies and develop skills, technical technology skills. So, just by being curious and being willing to learn, I think really exposed me to a lot more interests that I didn't necessarily knew actually were available at PwC, considering the fact that I knew I was going to a line of service. And just kind of to provide that context, what I'm doing right now in my tax line of service is I'm actually working on tax technologies, right? So I'm working both in this tax product development line of work, where we're working on tax technologies that we're actually using on my team to support in some of our engagements, right? So I think it's just being able to stay curious, being able to learn and be willing to learn about the different technologies that are out there, applying the time to kind of learn and to develop those skills. And then you never really know which opportunities really come during the day. But I definitely think by being able to raise my hand and join this digital accelerator role, the type of work that I do on a day-to-day is very different from what I think I would have imagined when I was a senior graduating from George Mason. So I definitely think just stay hungry and stay curious and be able to be willing to put in the time to learn those skills.
Very well said.
Yeah, Courtney. Yeah, because when I started my career, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And, the reality is that's the case for a lot of people. I don't know if you ever figure it out, because as you get exposed to new opportunities, and you discover an aptitude and interest to new things as you come across them. So the first thing is to again leverage the resources that you have, whether it's a career night or a career fair or your close network, and get curious about what other people are doing. Like Courtney mentioned, that curiosity can lead to more exploration, lead to more discovery about yourself, about your interests, your passions, and then you can pivot as you go. It's never a straight line. It is an exploration exercise that can lead you to places you never thought you would end up, like you're noticing with the professionals on the panel here today. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, sorry. I can start by telling you my story. So I was at a career fair, and KPMG was the last booth next to the way out, and I was like, I don't want to work at a big four. I don't want to do accounting. My background is IT. But I was like, well, they're the last booth. I stopped in and I talked to someone. And that's when I learned about IT audit, which is what I'm doing now. And I just had no idea that opportunity existed. And right after that, I went and talked to my capstone professor. I had an interview with KPMG, and here I am today. So I just want to mimic what everyone's been saying. Use your resources. Also, really take advantage of what classes you're taking and what classes are available to you right now, because based on what you like and even how you're doing in those classes can be an indicator of what you might want in your career. Also, talk to your professors. They more than likely had a professional career in some firm somewhere at some point in their life. And know that when you do join a firm, you're not stuck in that position. I'm slowly but surely transitioning myself into cyber. So I started with tech assurance and then I'm moving out. So you're not married to any position that you start out in. And that's really important to know. All of your managers and your management will be supportive. Everyone just really wants you to be happy and take the reins of your own career. Thanks.
I'll just echo onto that, to Courtney's point. You know, my degrees coming out of undergrad and even grad school, you know, at Mason, are in the more technology oriented, you know, computer science and engineering. And then it's amazing to me the number of types of jobs that are available with, you know, that type of background that can range from, you know, like what I'm doing or Bobby's doing, which is, you know, sales and marketing in terms of the role, but you have to have those skills underneath to fit the product and the customer you're supporting, all the way down to, you know, whether it's consulting or operations or other things. So there's different parts of a business that have to operate that you'll find will have a better fit for maybe your personality. I've been at other jobs where I was doing, you know, product management or consulting or operational things, and you know, they were good experience. I'm glad I have them in my career journey, but I've begun, you know, over time you realize, at least for me, I prefer that being on the sales side of the relationship with our customers, where you get to hear their problem first and try and figure out a way forward. And then there are other people with similar skills to mine who I then hand off to when it comes to either implementation of a solution, you know, which is usually an actual build out project with, you know, partners like a KPMG who do that work, and, you know, people who also support that once the customer is up and running. So, you know, so there's ways that you can have skills to get you into a certain space of a career. But then there are roles within you'll find you'll suit your personality and just how you like to spend your day that will be within that you'll, to everyone's point, it's hard to know that up front often, especially when you're out of school, but you'll experience that as your career evolves.
Thank you. Okay, so I see we have 10 minutes, so we have 2 more questions. So what do you find most rewarding about your work besides the money?
I'll take that first, Nirav. You know, when I look back at my career, starting in consulting, you know, a lot of my time has been, my career has been in consulting, and now settling for an industry job with just within one company. The common thread throughout that career trajectory has been the interaction with people, and that's what actually sparked my interest into going to business school in the first place. And you know, I made sure that when I was kind of picking my first job, that there was some element of quite a bit of interaction with people. So, you know, consulting would definitely give you that range of exposure, right, to different clients, different projects, different industries, and you know, throughout that, you know, that also kind of enables that discovery exploration process that we were talking about earlier with the last question. and getting together with people to solve solutions, I feel like it's the most, I mean, really is the most rewarding thing for me, whether I was in consulting or now in the banking industry. Now I'm not exposed to so many other industries anymore. It's just financial services. But even within that space, you're talking with so many other departments because technology does, as you know, does impact every aspect of business today. So you will bump into a lot of people, and if that's something that you like, it's technology has evolved from that misconception that from developers who just sit behind their desk all day and are coding to a whole bunch of new and exciting things that are happening, that are connecting the world all around us. And so for me personally, again, it's the opportunity to solve problems with as many people at the table as possible. I love that interaction with people.
Yeah, I'd say I agree. Work and play to me are the same thing. I think this is really important. If you're hungry and you only live once, you want to be in a company, in a role where work and play are the same thing, and you're immersed. And I think that is critical. And if you're in a company where you're not that way, or you don't feel that way, you should leave as fast as possible. It's a lesson that I learned, through my career. And I think that's, if you look at a company like UiPath, our brand purpose is accelerating human achievement, right? And so, when you can marry, both the fact that you love what you're doing and you'll use your discretionary time to think about work because it's that important, it's very satisfying, first of all. And if you can marry that with the mission-based that also accomplishes things that are important to you personally, right? So, in the case of UiPath, we've been able to position and show that UiPath drives higher job satisfaction, employee engagement. It thrills people; they get excited, and that's very rewarding, right? So you get both. And we have examples of helping autistic adults find work and be more employable by learning skills in automation, or helping speed the ability for the UN and the refugee crisis to be able to register and track and help refugees around the world. And so you kind of want to, I think you want a little bit of both, because it's important to feel good about what you're doing and what it can do for society. But work and play, and I know it's not for everyone, but I think that to me, it's the most. And you might say, well, okay, do you not have a life? Or I've got 2 great girls, I've got a great wife, I love, but it's that part of being able to love what you do. Every morning when I get up, I don't need an alarm clock to wake up, because I have not political stress, I have opportunity stress, which is how today can we make things go to a whole new level? And it's really exciting. It's really invigorating and addictive. And I would just say, just try to find the workplace where you could be in that, because look, you'll work hard no matter where you go. What you want to work hard somewhere that's doing great, that's growing. That's, you get into a rocket ship like Salesforce or others. It's so rewarding. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Certainly agree with everyone's points this far. One other point I'll add is being able to work that interaction, not just interaction with customers and making their lives better, as Bobby and Chrystel were alluding to, but also I feel very fortunate. I'm part of a really good team, both the people I have as peers in my role at Salesforce and the broader team of technologists across different functions and things like Salesforce. So I really appreciate that, because there are things I learn by seeing what other people do at Salesforce, or how they do their jobs, or things that they come up with that I would never have thought of, that I find are as rewarding, and also helping my own career and skills evolve as much as having a degree or badges or the other stuff we've talked about, right? So that's another thing, is that there's, as I mentioned before, there's a continual learning dynamic that's going on right now with technology, and certainly everyone has a variation of that in their role. But I appreciate that I'm not just learning sort of, technical things like taking a trail on Trailhead, like I was alluding to. There's also things I'm learning from my peers, and that's part of that cultural benefit I was talking about before. So that's one thing I really appreciate, beyond the money, is to tie back to the original question.
And I can jump in. This is Lena from PwC. I think largely kind of agree with everything that everyone has said. I know that when I was looking for like a company coming out of like college, and I assume a lot of people now are too as well, but like just really looking at organizations that have values and are really like, I guess, nested in with the conversation about things that matter to you. Like diversity and inclusion is something that obviously speaks a lot to me because I'm a Black woman. But I know that in terms of like the work that I do day to day, but also PwC's effort in terms of really prioritizing diversity and inclusion efforts has been really meaningful to me. With that, I've been able to kind of be involved with the Black Inclusion Network. And with that, we've been able to, be able to get some individuals to come in and speak and really help with some leadership, as well as providing ways in which we can be able to work on, intentional and really proactive inclusion at the firm. So, I mean, I know that like at the end of the day, you still have work to do, but I do think the relationships and really the culture that the firm fosters is also important to make you feel that you're valued as well as the work that you do. And also they're very mindful about the conversations that are occurring outside of the world as well, because we all live in communities. We all have, very we all have things that impact our day to day. So it's really important that you're also working at a company that aligns with some of your values, and also it's also comfortable, or at least challenges the discomfort that those conversations bring into the workspace. But for me, I know that that's something that I definitely have valued working at PwC, knowing that they are, really making an intentional effort to make sure that not only the workplace, but also our communities as well are very inclusive and diverse.
Thank you, Lena. Let's see if Alex and Courtney want to add something there.
Definitely. One thing I would like to add, our CEO, Victor Hoskins, mentioned, for every job we save a household. And when we save a household, we save communities. That's a very powerful statement. Our work goes beyond a paycheck. It's a privilege to support companies like the ones being represented on the panel today, and to help expand their operations and to help create additional jobs for households and communities to benefit from.
I'll jump in really quick. I know we have 1 minute left, but I, again, echo everything that everyone has been saying. And for me specifically, I work in the federal sector. So all my clients are government agencies. And that's really meaningful to me because my work is impacting essentially every US citizen, because the government touches everyone, and everything that I do is important for everyone around me, my friends, family, community. And that's what is really important to me beyond the paycheck.
Thank you all. We are having so many questions on the chat as well, but unfortunately we can't ask them all today. So I'd like to thank Alex, Bobby, Courtney, Brian, Lena, Chrystel for participating in this panel today. And thank you to Alex for sponsoring it. And of course to our fearless leader, Carrie Willigan, for making this all possible.
Thank you all for attending. Please let us know if you have any questions. You can reach out to us. And thank you to our wonderful panel. This was wonderful, and I'm sure you gave the students some really great information. So, and thank you to Dean Piperl for attending as well.
Thank you, Dean. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.